Yes, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be joining us on the 26th of December. Welcome. We meet again to discuss philosophy and the philosophy and ideology of progressive Pan-Africanism. Today is the 26th of December, and as has been our tradition, we meet. And anyone who cares to join us can join us because we recognize that there are festivities going on. It's a time of the year when some families meet because they haven't met for a long time. So once a year they meet, and it's times like this that they meet. So a lot of people find that they are unable to join a discussion like this. And we've had that over the years. But we also recognize not all Pan-Africanists are Christians. Not all Pan-Africanists are Muslims, and not all Pan-Africanists are traditionalists. There is a variety of Pan-Africanists. And so we take the secular position where the platform is available for all those who can join us. So welcome. If you've joined us, welcome, Brother Pigeon. Welcome, Brother Carrington. Welcome, Brother Sister Marsha. I believe Sister Marsha. And then welcome, Brother Coco. Welcome. Thank you for taking time out of your festive period to join us. So welcome. We shall, as normal, proceed with our discussions. As we normally do, we'll read first. And once we've read, one of us reads. In the past, we take it in turns to read. And so once we've read, we'll go around and hear everyone's views. Your thinking is as important as anybody else's. We are all equal in this space, although we have experts in our midst, like Brother Carrington, who is our physicist. Nevertheless, we are all equal in the sense that we all have a right to think and to share our thinking in a safe space like this. This is a safe space. Even though we record it, it's still a safe space in the sense that you can express whatever thinking you like, and we won't hold it against you, including disagreeing with Osajifo, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah himself. It's fine as long as you share with us why you disagree, so that we also will have the opportunity to agree or disagree with you. Otherwise, it's a safe space. It's a thinking space. It's not a feelings space. It's not about how you feel about something. It's not a feelings space. It's not it's not about opinions as such. It's about what you are thinking, what is going on in your head. As we read a passage and you are listening, what thoughts are going through your mind? Those are the thoughts we are most interested in, and those are the thoughts we would like to hear. I've told Brother Coco in the past that his group called Farmers of Thought, that name, Farmers of Thought, is a very profound name because, as I said to him in the past, it reflects the way in which some indigenous African nations express thinking in their language. So, for instance, in my language, to think is to farm thought. That's what the word thinking means in my language. You are farming thought. So in a sense, in this class, we are farming our thoughts, and then we are harvesting our thoughts as we listen, and then we are sharing it with one another. So welcome, and I'm very pleased to have you all here. Once again, it's the 26th of December, a day after Christ was supposedly born. Right, so welcome. Brother Pigeon has kindly highlighted the paragraph for us. That paragraph is a bit short, if I might say. Maybe you should highlight that in the next paragraph for us, so that we read the two paragraphs. So the paragraphs Brother Pigeon shared with us in advance, because she does share them in advance. The highlighted paragraph, the one after that. So yeah, so those are the two paragraphs he shared with us. And the idea is that we will read them in advance and do some investigations in advance, think about them, farm our thoughts, to use Brother Koko's language. Yeah, and then we meet. So yeah, so let's read. Anyone is free to read for us, and then yeah, and then we will share our thoughts. I'm happy to start with the first paragraph, and then someone get ready to read the second paragraph. Since there's a sister in our midst, Sister Marsha, I believe we've seen you before. You've joined us before. So, Sister Marsha, get ready to read the next paragraph for us. Thank you. So here we go. With the church's embracing of Neo-Aristotelianism, she saved herself in the nick of time, for she thus adopted a philosophical standpoint which enabled her to make concessions to the Renaissance and man's regained social importance.
Nevertheless, in his anxiety to restore the egalitarian form of society,
Sister
Aristotle
Masha, slow down. Thank you. Yeah.
Nevertheless, in his anxiety to restore the egalitarian form of society, Aristotle actually tried to arrest the dialectic of thought.
Are you able to slow down even more than that? If you can, please do. If not, don't worry.
Sure. He tried to secure this arrest by laying down his categories. According to him, these categories are the most general concepts under which the world can be thought of. There is no object or process in nature which does not, so far as it can be conceived, fall under one or more of the categories. Examples of which are quality, quantity, rest, motion, time, place. A great deal of the metaphysics in such a view can therefore only consist of the identifying of these categories and the elucidation of them. But in this way also, an attempt is made to fix in advance the forms of any future metaphysics. Indeed, prolegomena, the future metaphysics, are commonplaces of philosophy. These prolegomena are a kind of preface written by philosophers and addressed to all future philosophers. In these prefaces, the authors lay down the limits, the purposes, and the forms which they claim must guide all future philosophies. Kant is another example of a philosopher who identified the basic concept in terms of which alone nature can appear to us and become intelligible.
Wow. Sister Masha, you've made my Christmas. You've made my Christmas. You've made our Christmas most meaningful. Thank you so much for that measured, calm reading, because it enabled us to be thinking whilst you were reading. And that was so useful. And that is how we read in our class. Reason being that we are reading for thinking. So thank you so much. And so between you and I, brothers and sisters who are here or who will listen to us have heard the male and female voice. So now we shall share our thinking on what we have heard. So let me welcome Chris Batuba. The name sounds very Rwandese. I may be mistaken, but yeah, sounds very Rwandese. Welcome, Chris. Brother the King is also joining us because he's just about to join us. So welcome, the King Mauli, based in Ghana. Yeah, thank you, Chris. I've seen your hand. So we're going to share our thinking, and we normally go to the readers, those who read themselves much later, because they've just finished the reading, so we hear them later. So Sister Masha and myself will share our thinking later. Those of you who have had the pleasure of listening to both of us, you can then share your thinking. If it's okay with everyone, I shall start with Brother Pigeon.
Brother Kwame?
Yes, sir.
I'm sharing the screen, but I'm not able to see the screen. I don't know what's going on. Are you seeing the screen?
Yes, we can see the screen. That's correct.
Okay, I'm actually having some
Just so you
background
know,
noise.
yeah, I understand. Just so you know, all three, because I'm using my laptop, I can see all three highlighted sections. So everything is on my screen, but that's only because I'm using a laptop. Others are using mobile phones, so it's harder to see everything. But yeah, I can see everything.
Okay, you'll allow me to stop sharing, then I'll share again so that I can also be able to see it, because there's something that I'm not seeing from my side.
Sorry, I didn't quite get that. Did you say you don't want to
Allow
share
me to stop sharing so that I will share it again so that I can also be able to see the screen, because I'm only seeing in the screen, unless I don't know what has happened. I'm not seeing the screen, I'm seeing in the screen.
Okay. So
Yes.
what would you like me to do?
Now let me be the one to stop sharing, then I will share again if I can now also see the screen.
I still don't get you. So you want to share later or now?
Now,
You want to share your thoughts?
no,
All right.
I'm only sharing the screen. I'm not able to see the screen from my side as much as I'm sharing the screen.
I understand that bit. What I'm asking, what would you like me to do?
No, you don't have to do anything. Just allow me to stop sharing, then I will share the screen again. Stop sharing the screen, then reshare
I
it.
see. Okay, do it. Well, do that whilst we listen to Brother Carrington then. Brother Carrington, I'm sure you are able to contribute without seeing the screen whilst Brother Pigeon is resharing the screen. So, Brother Carrington.
Now I'm now okay. I'm now set.
Yeah, it's fine. We'll come back to you, Brother Pigeon. Just relax a little bit. We'll come back to you. Brother Carrington.
Yes.
You and I had a profound
disagreement. I haven't read your message. I'll read yeah, the debate will continue.
No colonialism and
fact,
patrimonialism.
I am
Brother Pigeon.
actually on Brother Pigeon's side, so the debate is between Brother Pigeon and yourself.
No,
No,
just for your
it's
information,
2 against 1.
just for your information, there's a book that I shared on that. That's why I got the text. There's a book in our library that talks purely on that. So maybe we'll be interested to have a reading to those who will be interested. The book is on our library. We have a Pan-African library, which is a CSJ library. So I found the book, and that's why I only took the snapshot of the book. But the book is there that might explain so many things.
Yeah, yeah.
Excellent. At least now I know it's 2 against 1, so I'll prepare very well.
Yes, you must prepare very well.
Yes. So, brother
But
Karen, share with us.
you're very clear thinking. It's a 50-50. It's not. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, share
Thank
your
you.
thinking with us on what we have read,
Yeah.
or what we have heard read
Yes.
by
Thank you
myself,
very
Mr.
much.
Marshall, Mr. Marshall, and myself. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Brother Christian, Sister Marcia. Thank you very much, brothers and sisters. Merry Christmas, happy holiday, and happy Kwanzaa as we begin our own African designed holiday system. So, I would really love to start with this idea of the church being adaptable. The church is a very interesting institution in the history, not just of Africa, but of the world, in the sense that in which it adapts to the political and social forces that are at play in the world in a given period. So that was the main purpose of the paragraph that Brother Christian read, Brother Kwame read. So remember that in an earlier page, we had talked about the church and Neoplatonism. So adapting Platonism for the purposes of the early church in the Roman Empire, especially by Egyptian and other African scholars, Libyan, Alexandrian scholars. Okay? The important thing here was that the church thought that Plato was more in consonance with this idea of a perfect creator, of a perfect universe to which human beings have fallen from the glory of. And this is important. Over time, social pressures in Europe, political pressures in Europe, especially in Germany, as some of you are aware, with the Reformation movement, the Protestant movement, and the Renaissance movement, starts to question this idea of human beings as being fundamentally flawed and basically fallen short of the glory of God. And therefore, the church, in its usual style, if you analyze it as one block, adapts this by adopting forms of egalitarianism, forms of equality, right? You can remember the Protestants saying that Bibles should be printed out in local languages, in Germany, the United Kingdom, and France, in French, English, and German, so that the common people can read the Bible and understand the Bible. And this is actually one of the driving forces for literacy in Europe in the 19th and 18th century. So the church is adopting slowly a Neo-Aristotelian position. But we must remember also, and we've had a very long discussion with Brother Kwame, Brother Pigeon about this, that Aristotelianism has a qualified sense of egalitarianism. It is not complete. It is qualified with categories of citizens, for example. And this brings us to our second paragraph, that Aristotelianism, and has been explained by the Osagefo beforehand, is limited in its conceptualization of egalitarianism because it has this idea of categories. And this is another instance of our long discussion this year of philosophy playing into politics. So egalitarianism of categories lends itself here. I will go back to Aristotle's philosophy of the elements, for example, earth, air, fire, and water, if I remember correctly. Philosophers, philosophically trained people, please correct me. Basically, Aristotle describes material in the world by how much fire they have, how much air they have, even if they are combinations of these elements, and describes their natural properties by referring to these categories, these elements, okay? And therefore, the result of this is that Aristotle ends up with a very, by his time and in his society, sophisticated view of what egalitarianism means. Egalitarianism could mean having come from all this, from these elements, these basic elements, because everything in the universe comes from these basic elements and can be categorized from these elements, right? But nonetheless, they are also different. And this serves into Aristotle's formulation of his society. And therefore, this philosophy, this implicit philosophy that all animals are equal, but some are more equal than others, feeds itself slowly in the church. And just as the church is reforming, as we are all aware, reforming the beginnings of first wave and second wave imperialism also grow. So that is my explanation of these two paragraphs. Thank you.
Yeah. But currently, before you go, I hope you don't mind me asking you. Can you can you summarize just in a few words what your
Yes. Yes.
yeah
Apologies for the
what your
long.
thoughts are? Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
I
First.
ask you because you are capable of doing that. Yeah, that's why I asked.
Yeah. Thank you. First, the fact that the church adopts Neo-Aristotelianism, which we can understand as a qualified form of egalitarianism, to adapt to the social and political changes that are going on in Europe in the, I think, 16th and 15th, 16th and 17th century. Okay, this is an important point. The second point, the implications of this egalitarian, quote unquote, Neo-Aristotelianism for the rest of the world, right? As Europe is getting more educated, as Europe is getting more exposed, as Europe is getting, on average, wealthier, more industrial, what are the implications for the rest of the world in this period, right? What happens? Which philosophy is Europe running as it begins to become curious about the external world, right? Which philosophy is Europe running? So this is important. Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much for summarizing your thoughts. Let's now go back to Brother Pigeon, who I think can now see the screen. Yeah. Brother Pigeon?
Yes, Brother Kwame.
Yeah. Are you able to now contribute?
Yes.
Carry on, please.
Now, in this text, actually, we are getting the. I'm still first of all trying to understand how did the church then now start first of all to actually embracing Neo-Aristotelianism, and the word Neo-Aristotelianism to me first of all sound like, was there old Aristotelianism, or because in the previous paragraph I saw there was destruction of Platonic philosophy. Was the Platonic philosophy?
Yeah. 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 Let me help you with that. Then you can carry on with your sharing. So remember, Aristotle had well, we've argued about that, haven't we? That there were books that Aristotle was said to have written. Yeah. And these books are on different areas of of learning. There were books on physics, books on ethics, books on so many different areas. And we've argued here that according to George James, some of them he stole from the Library of Alexandria in Africa, and put his name to it, and that it was plagiarism on a gigantic scale by Aristotle. I think we covered that at length in our previous sessions. So those books were there, but in the Middle Ages, when Europe was asleep, for all kinds of reasons, but mainly because of the domination of the church, there was no learning, there was no knowledge, there was no development. Europe had stagnated in the Middle Ages. Parts of Africa were far ahead in terms of development. Europe was so far behind, it was pathetic. And then in around the 14th century, so the story goes, they discovered these books or this knowledge of Aristotle. And not just Aristotle, remember, it's all the classical works. Because when the church was in control, the church locked all these classical works in the cupboard, because the church wanted to control the world. So they locked all these up. And so in the 14th, 15th century, starting with 14th century, they discovered, let me just put it out, they discovered all this knowledge. And that is what is meant by Neo-Aristotelianism, meaning renewed Aristotle. That's what it basically means.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you for that. So, but I'm taking it still back on the Plato's philosophy. We then at that moment, when we came from Anaximander, and when there was classification in a society, where it was said that the church assumed the divine power, and therefore the church was more of above. In fact, the church was like the government, and in that embracing the hierarchy of structures in a society, over a period of time, we came across where we realized that the church, that philosophy that made the church be above in a society, was destroyed, and then the center of concentration now turned back to the people. So the church lost the power to the political class in some period of time, as my understanding, and also linked to the previous readings. And Plato's philosophy was basically the basis where the church actually weighed too much of their strength in terms of that hierarchy in a society. But then Aristotle's understanding of, or Aristotle's thinking of egalitarianism, which is not actually the true egalitarianism that is advocated by Socrates, irrespective of course, Aristotle trying to still support slavery and do not speak against or oppression or discrimination of gender in a society. But his aspect of egalitarianism, I think, where it then concentrated back to equality of people. And when you say, even though you use category of people, that a state is made up of a union of individuals, he was actually returning back and actually embracing what was already started of destruction of the church power, the divine power of church back to the people. So I think the churches knew, as I'm reading the text here, that she saved herself in the nick of her time. The church knew that if they were actually not to move to the Aristotle's aspect a bit of egalitarianism, or concentrating to the people and not the divine power that they were losing, then they could not be relevant. So hanging to Neo-Aristotelianism, which to me is actually the egalitarianism advocated by Aristotle, was something that could save them a business. And that's why the second line to me understand by saying that she thus adopted a philosophical standpoint which enabled her to make concession of renaissance, and man regained social importance. So man was a central space again. And I realized there's a linking and a reading we did past where they say that spirituality or worship or prayer, I think it was in the first chapter, was the central duty of a man. And either plowing, planting, or everything else, there was some aspect of spirituality in man's duty. But now concentrating back social importance of man in egalitarianism was a new standing point, which is what I can share from the first paragraph. Let me analyze the second paragraph.
So you want me to come back to you later then, yeah? Is that correct?
As I analyze the second paragraph.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. So let's hear from Sister Marsha. Are you able to? Do you feel able to contribute at this point? You've had time to listen and read it.
I'm
Yeah, what
I'm
are your thoughts?
because perhaps it helps me to come back to an unresolved question, in my own research and in my own thinking around the place of philosophers, thinkers from what I'm going to call the Aristotle era. Because I'm coming out of the Caribbean intellectual tradition. And there is a way, of course, that tradition is tied to Africa. In as much as it is tied to Africa, it is tied to a rupture from Africa. So I believe that while there is value to speak to Aristotle, as Pigeon just did, in terms of how the ideas, the polemics between that old European world and Africa, they were both Africa and that old European world are able to have that conversation because they both were positioned in that world together. The Caribbean comes into that conversation as a result of rupture. So what I'm trying to say is that the Caribbean comes in perhaps in a very unique position when we think about Caribbean civilization, because the rupture was complete, because people died. When you think about spaces like Barbados and Jamaica, the old ways were completely eviscerated, and it left a tabula rasa for people to populate the way that they wanted to populate it. And so all of the ideas that are coming to the Caribbean connected to Aristotle, connected to that, that era of thinking, they are being funneled. And they're being funneled through the colonizers, they're being funneled through the brutality, and they're being funneled through Black Death. So the way in which Aristotle shows up in my thinking and in my work is something that I'm still grappling with. And that is not a full dismissal, but it is just to say that every time I try to engage, I find myself at 1492, right? Because that is where the Caribbean becomes situate in the conversation. And so when we talk about the church, I don't know necessarily, again, that I can connect it to Aristotle, but what I can connect it to is the ways that it has been used to legitimate and legitimize abuses against women and girls, and Black Death more broadly. And so, I think this is perhaps where the conversations that we have across continents, across seas are important, because it may not necessarily be that, I have a particularly cogent or clear space in the conversation, but sitting here and listening more to the relationship between, like I said, that old world, Aristotle's Europe, the Africa that in that time was still being plummeted and exploited. Perhaps that then helps us to get a clearer sense that this is not something that and I mean, if we have read the work of, like, a Robinson here, Cedric Robinson, the making of a Black radical tradition, we know that this didn't start in 1492, but perhaps it just underlines that. So I think that is as much as I want to offer for now, and maybe I can try to contribute more in a second round.
So, still on the thinking, it seems to me, correct me if I'm wrong, just sharing your thinking, it seems to me what you're saying is that, I say, correct me if I'm wrong, that even though the church may have embraced Neo-Aristotelianism, the way in which it embraced it was itself defective in the kind of how it evolved, because we know that the church was engaged in slavery, for instance. So if the church claims to have embraced Aristotle and humanism, how come it was engaged in slavery? Could it be that, and I know you weren't here when we discussed this, Sister Marsha, could it be that it is because of what we read earlier that Aristotle believed in slavery? So when the church embraced Aristotle, it did not discard slavery. It thought slavery was okay because in the writings of Aristotle, they read that Aristotle thought slavery was okay. So then the question then is, which humanism, what kind of humanism did the church embrace?
Yeah, I think you do have a sense of the point that I'm making. The point that I'm making is anybody that is reading Aristotle, Plato, those thinkers in this day and not reading them with the understanding of the rupture that happens in 1492 is not reading them in a useful way. Because whatever value Aristotle, Plato, all these Socrates, whatever value they had for understanding our world as a quote unquote better place, quote unquote more just place, all of this has to be prismed through how their work, and I'm not trying to blame them for what happened to their work, but I am trying to signal that we have to read their work prism through what their work was used to do in 1492 and beyond. And what their work was used to do was to legitimate the construction of a hierarchical world where white supremacy, was the pinnacle of the world. Black death was necessary to the upholding of white supremacy. And then there was the subjugation of everybody else pretty much who did not fit that, inclusive of women and people differenced by gender, people differenced by who they were sexually attracted to, people different by disability and whether they could produce in a capitalist way, so on and so on and so forth. So exactly, you are coming frontally to my complication with, as a scholar steeped in the Caribbean intellectual tradition, unapologetically, I find little more use for Aristotle and all of these individuals than a passing mention. However, I understand their importance in legitimating the rupture that creates the Caribbean. And I understand how the church is a proponent of that. And so, you started the conversation by saying that there are Pan-Africanists who are Christian and there are some who are not. And I don't mean to be controversial, but again, I'm trying to reconcile what a Pan-Africanist that is a Christian looks like. What is that? Because to me, that is a very fraught and confusing notion that you could have an individual who is steeped in the understanding of why we need something like Pan-Africanism, but then also still believe and allow themselves, to be principled by one of the very cornerstones of the creation of the rupture, that is the church.
Yeah, no, you've no, thank you for for bringing your perspective to the discussion. The rapture you're talking about, as you've explained it, extend that to Africa as a whole, because that rapture created, if you like, an enslaved Africa and a colonized Africa, and then now a neo-colonized Africa. So that rapture you're talking about is still with us, and the very points you make are the reason Nkrumah is inviting us to look into where, in quote unquote, this evil is coming from. Because the second paragraph, in a nutshell, explains how when you write a book and you write a preface to your book where you set out definitions and you set boundaries, what you are doing is that you are telling people who read your book that they shouldn't go beyond these boundaries, that the boundaries that you are setting are the only boundaries within which they must operate. It's like imprisoning people within a certain prison, locking them up in a particular prison, and then saying to them, I know you use the word prism, I'm using the word prison, as in prison. So you create a prison, and you say to them, this is a prison in which I want you to operate. So it's like the cave of Plato, and those in the cave, and all they see are shadows, and they cannot see the real world and the sun, the enlightened world.
Are you there?
Beyond the cave. Yeah. Can you hear me, everyone? I don't know if I went.
You dropped out for me for a minute.
Oh, okay.
But I got the general gist of what you were saying.
Mm.
And so I will say that, from my vantage in Canada, one of the benefits of this global north space is that it gives the opportunity for us as Caribbean Black people and African Black people to reconverge in a space where neither of us is at home.
Mm.
And so what that does is that it should, I don't know if it always does, but it should be a space where we're looking for alliances, right?
Yeah.
And in looking for those alliances, many times we get to talking about the construction of Black death and coloniality, which, as you rightly said, is an experience that we both have as African and Caribbean people, but which we've experienced differently. And one of the things that is very striking to me, and maybe I would invite others in this group to help me to understand, because this is another answer that I'm looking for. I am astounded, and astounded is the right word, by how my brothers from the continent are still embracing Christianity to the level that they do. Right?
Mm.
So when we come into this Canadian space, you could almost go around the room without making anyone speak, without any accent or anything. You could play a game. And the game would be to line everyone up on one side of the room and to say, those of you who are Christians, step out. And 99% of the time, the individuals who identify so are Black people from the continent. Caribbean people, you will find it in us, but it's minority.
Yeah. You see,
So that is astounding.
No, it's a very good question, and there are others here who could also chip into that. What I would say before we move on, because we'll come back to you when we've had more people, is that in reading what we are reading in Nkrumah, this is chapter 2 of his book, where he's trying to chart a philosophy for us to answer some of the questions you've raised, and to say to us, if we want to unite, liberate, and develop Africa, what kind of philosophy do we need? And so he's inviting us into the minds of Aristotle and the minds of, therefore, Europeans to see where their mindset is. Because you mentioned white supremacy. If you are going to defeat an enemy, you need to know the enemy's mind and how the enemy thinks. And so here we are being exposed to us the way that they think. Now, if it is a case that Western civilization has not gone beyond Aristotle, because Aristotle set the boundaries for Western civilization, in the Prolegomena, if that is the case, then we can see where the problem lies. And if we're going to defeat imperialism, which we must, then, because if we don't defeat imperialism and its handmaiden neocolonialism, then we can't unite and develop Africa. Africa cannot develop if it does not defeat neocolonialism. Africa can't develop, but the current, I'll make that point here. If Africa defeats neo-patrimonialism, but doesn't defeat neocolonialism, nothing will change. So in reading this paragraph, Nkrumah is inviting us to have a fundamental understanding of the African problem, of the African Caribbean problem, of the African Canadian problem, however we want to look at it, because wherever we are, both on the continent and the diaspora, we all face the same problem, which is Western civilization and the way it's been crafted.
Brother Kwame.
So thank you very much. Yes, Brother Pigeon.
Am I able to also contribute briefly?
You want to contribute, yeah?
Yeah, my thinking scene.
So that second paragraph. Yeah, carry on, and then we'll hear from others. Yeah, go on. Yeah, go on. You are muted, brother.
Now, I think the church move in this case is actually, church was trying to still maintain its relevance and influence, as I've said.
Brother P, don't worry, we understand. It's part of life. We'll come back to Brother Pigeon in a moment. Let's hear from Chris Matu Batuba. Share your thinking with us, please. And confirm if I got it right or not, because the name sounded Rwandese. Confirm if I'm right or wrong.
Thank you so much, King.
You're welcome.
Good evening.
Yes, good evening.
I'm still drinking from this well of knowledge.
Okay.
I'm not a philosopher per se.
By the way, is this your first time joining us?
But by South African.
Okay.
Yes, I think it's for the first time.
Just so you know, we've had other brothers and sisters from South Africa who have joined, who joined us. Some of them from the ANC, and they've disappeared. So welcome. Before you continue, Brother Chris. Yeah. Before you continue, Brother Coco had his hand up. I don't know if he wants to just chip in something before you continue.
Oh, okay.
Brother Coco, did you want to chip in something before Brother Chris continues?
I don't know. When he says South African, it's not enough because South Africa is big, it's varied. He is a Sotho name.
Okay, I didn't know.
Yes.
I thought it sounded more like more than one. Anyway, where you come from is not the issue at the moment, so it's okay. Brother Chris, continue. Thank you, Brother Coco.
For a long time, I've been a very staunch Catholic, but from school days, I have always been giving priests, bishops a runaround because I've been questioning a number of things. I think I have time now to dig deeper and find answers to questions I've been asking. So I find this very interesting because in the past month and this month, I spend the greater part of my time trying to look at the origins of Africans and trying to find out what happened to this great nation that even before the current era, we colonized almost every nation and ruled it. And the recent one being from 711 to 1492. Now, I'm trying to find out where did this Christianity come from? And I have found a character called Constantine, who I'm writing about how he hijacked a revolutionary movement that was established after the murder of Jesus Christ. And it started in the Mediterranean region, which by then also encompassed North Africa. Now, I have learned and I'm learning that this movement that was called the Way was so strong that it was a serious threat to the Roman Empire, whereby then Emperor Nero started the persecutions of members of this movement, not Christians, members of this movement, and his successors, until the 4th century when a somehow smart emperor, Constantine, decided to co-opt and hijack this movement and called it Christianity and controlled the narrative. And any narrative that differed with the narrative he wanted, people were persecuted, like the Donatists in North Africa, because some could see through his intentions and protested, and so they were dealt with. So that's where I am, and I find it so interesting that what we have as Christianity now, because the title of what I'm writing is how the Roman Empire hijacked Christianity.
Before you continue, Chris, listening to you, if you just reflect on what Sister Marsha was saying, can you see the gap between you two, where Sister Marsha is and where you are? So you are with Constantine, you're trying to find, you have gone back into history to Constantine to see how things evolve in his time.
Yes.
All the way back from Constantine to 1492, and then 1492 to the present.
Yes.
Can you see the gap?
Yes, I can see the gap. You know, the problem is one.
You are far away in the past, if that makes sense.
Yes, because the past laid the foundation of where we are. Until and unless we do that, because what we are following as Christianity is actually not Christianity. It's paganism.
Yeah, the reason I mentioned this is also because so I was in South Africa in 1994, by the way. This is when not 1996, 2 years after apartheid ended officially in South Africa. I visited South Africa and I saw firsthand some things. And one of the questions that brothers and sisters at the time, I don't know how old you are, by the way, were saying was that they were made to believe that the black that the black people of South Africa, or black people generally, did not contribute anything to civilization. That's how they were made to believe, and so they had no sense of worth, no sense of value. And it was only after apartheid that things began to.
But that does not apply only to South Africans, because
Sorry,
all of
yes,
us.
sorry, I went off. I went off temporarily. I don't know if you can hear me. So, there is no doubt, Chris, that um, knowing history, there's no doubt about that. The role of history, and those who take an interest in history, are one section, if you like, of Pan-Africanists. In other words, there are Pan-Africanists who are interested in the history of everything, including the church, Africa, and so on. And the key focus in the history of Africa is ancient Egypt. So everything around ancient Egypt, there's America and so on, ancient Egypt. And then there are Pan-Africanists who are just interested in today, the current. So, for example, the presidents of Africa are more interested in how they can make money today, how they can steal when they are in office. They don't really care about the past, and not so much about whether Africa tomorrow is strong and united. They're not really interested in that. They're just interested in now, being in power now. And then there are Pan-Africanists who are interested in the future. So they are asking, well, how can we be united? How can we develop as Africans? How can we, in other words, how can Africa evolve in the way in which we want? So there are these three categories of Africans, and you are sounding like the first category. We're interested in the past, how we came to be where we are, and so on. If you listen to what Sister Marsha said, frankly, whether those Africans in Africa today are practicing the true Christianity or not is irrelevant, because they shouldn't be practicing Christianity, quote unquote. Am I making sense? In other words, the transformation of Africa is not an issue of Christianity. It's not a religious issue. It is a neo-colonialist issue. It is neo-colonialism that we need to overcome. But then somebody could argue, well, surely what people believe is part of the problem. So in that sense, you are right in looking at the history. Anyway, please continue your contribution and end, because you have a right to share your thinking.
Yes, I think time is not enough for me to go through, but I was just saying that, and what you are saying is very important, because we are following the Western way of acquiring and using knowledge by compartmentalizing knowledge into categories. This philosophy, that and that and that. In ancient Africa, we had knowledge. Everything was integrated. Now we've got these disciplines that at times we spend so much time arguing about.
So can I come in there? So what you are saying is true, but
yes, okay.
Brother Chris, what you're saying is true. The reason it took 40 years to educate people in Africa in those days was because the priest had to know everything. The African priest was a master of everything. So in order for him to educate one person, it took 40 years to be educated. You're not suggesting we go back to that, are you?
No. And because we think that...
So we have to specialize.
No, because we think that the priest was the only teacher. We had an oral tradition where every adult was a teacher. So, these are...
But we did not have that.
Yeah, these are the things that I'm really trying to uncover, because if you even go to Germany, when you deal with a German, someone would be a doctor, but would see them doing, I mean, even the priests that were here at some parish where I was, a priest was running a dispensary for medicines and would be a carpenter and would be integrated kind of curriculum. So that's why I'm saying, this journey that I've embarked on, many people find a problem with it. So, and
Why?
because
Why do they have a problem with it?
no, it's because the things that I'm saying, of going back to say, when we used to to dominate the world politics, economy, and everything, education, what happened? Now, the answer would be, after our conquer in Spain in 1492, you saw when they then vowed that never and never again will we allow this nation to rise, by the things that they did and the tools that they then designed to subjugate us to where we are. Unless we understand that history, that background, that how did it come? Because when you start from even that 4th century, where Constantine hijacked this movement, it was not a religion. So that's why I'm doing it, to say to people, look, this was never
Yeah.
it was a
But
revolutionary
you see,
movement.
but you see, Chris, what I'm saying to you is that it's okay for you to do that investigation, but be aware that a lot of that has already been done. A lot of what you're saying, there are documents, there are books written by Africans like yourself on some of these things, if not all of them. That's all I'm trying to say to you. A lot of um, these the knowledge you are trying to dig up has been done. I mean, Constantine and what he did not do. A lot of these, if not all of them, are already with us. We have a library which Brother Pigeon has just started, where we are beginning to put together some of the classics on a lot of these topics. So I would invite you to join the library and share what some of the books we have there, and also share with us what you have uncovered. But I would like you to comment on the reading we did today. I'd like to hear your thinking on it. And we'll be interested in all that you are saying, though. Yeah, we are interested in what you unearth in addition to what we already know. Yeah.
Remember,
But can we hear your thoughts on what is on the screen before you stop talking?
remember that I made a disclaimer from the beginning that from the philosophical point of view, I am a novice.
We are all novices, brother Chris.
I am drinking from this well.
Brother Chris, we are all novices. That's why we are here. This class, I just want to assure this class, we are here because we all want to learn from Osajifo. That's why we're all novices here. Nobody here is a professional philosopher. But what Nkrumah is saying is that, like you, we must all understand the philosophical origins of our domination, how it is that we have become a dominated people, and if we don't understand the basis of that domination, then we can't unravel the domination. So I just want to assure you that we are all novices here. Okay?
I missed to comment on that, because I found it very powerful when you were quoting Nkrumah, and I said 2 days ago when I was talking to someone about this, said, yeah, but what are you going to do about this history and knowing? He said, no, I'm trying to get into the mind of the oppressor.
This book will give you.
Yes.
This book is the you see what is interesting about this book is that
Yes.
it's written by the person who led the Pan-African movement globally.
Yes.
And
So,
when he got independence in 1957 for Ghana, it used to be Gold Coast, then Ghana.
yes.
He then led the movement, yeah, and he was aided later by Du Bois, and
Yes.
then this guy from Barbados, what's his name? Brother Padmore, George Padmore. Is it no
Yes.
from Trinidad? Yeah. Brother Padmore, who was then the person heading the what was called the African Bureau, and so after Ghana's independence in 57, he then leads the independence movement, and most African countries get independence in 1960. Others haven't. He then continues until he was removed in 66. But the struggle continued until South Africa in 1994. And if you remember, Winnie mentioned that telling Nkrumah that at last South Africa is also free. Now, if you go back in 57 when Nkrumah got independence, in Nkrumah then put together the philosophical position that enabled him to defeat colonialism. And this is his book. And in the same book, he is telling us if we want to defeat neo-colonialism, this is what we need to do. The problem is that a lot of Africans are asleep in the sense that most people are not even reading the book. The enemy has ensured that nobody is touching this book. In fact, when some of us came to philosophy proper, in terms of the African the liberation of Africa and so on, you couldn't even find this book. It was very rare. It wasn't being, apart from the fact that it wasn't being read, it was hard to find. I mean, now we are distributing it free, but the pigeon will distribute free to anyone who wants it. We have got the e-version now, and so back. If you go back 20 years, it wasn't there like that. So, Brother Chris, you have this is the book you need. Then, if that is what you want, that is your goal. This is the book for you, because in here Nkrumah has summarized the whole journey philosophically.
Please send the soft copy to me.
Yeah, Brother Pigeon will do that. Brother Pigeon, put your link in the chat, and Brother Pigeon will
Yes.
we'll share it with you.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a powerful statement. Let's give others a chance,
Of
like I
course.
said.
Of
Yes,
course.
let's give it.
That is what we do. We hear from everyone when we come to class. We hear from everyone. So thank you very much. We'll come back to you later on in the discussion. So we haven't heard from Brother The King and Mauli and Brother Coco. Just so you know, Chris, Brother Coco is from Lesotho. So yeah, Brother Coco, maybe
he's my comrade. He's my comrade. At times we exchange what do you call it? The swords.
Oh, okay.
These issues. So
excellent. It's good to know you know each other. Well done. Okay, thank you. Brother Coco, maybe this is a time to come in now and share your thoughts. Thank you. Brother Coco?
Apologies, comrades. I am with my brother-in-law here, and we are diving to South London from North. But I can have a couple of words. Comrade Chris, welcome. Thank you very much for taking your time to join. It's I mean, what we just read here is typical of what we heard about Aristotle. Aristotle is a smart intellectual, but we said Aristotle did not do anything except to list out the stuff which was already existing and elucidate. He just elucidated, nothing more than that. And it's what the book is about, what the text is about. It just emphasizes that. Besides that, we are saying, he's talking about Christianity because he wants the Africans to understand what Christianity was about, or where the origins of Christianity were. But the Africans, as we say, they don't read this. They won't know. And again, it's interesting because Nkrumah himself did not go out and tell the Africans that Christianity is good or Christianity is bad. He left all the stories or the messages in the book. So it's up to the Africans to read that, interpret it, and then take it along however they see fit. All right. So in the reading which we have done today, we realize how the church once again was fluid in changing direction or changing whatever is available, using whatever is available to continue going. So, in a sense, I see us continuing to, I see the church continuing to survive, regardless of who says what, or what comes along. They are always looking for
Coco, we can't hear you.
saying
Coco,
the church has to
Coco?
continue. Yes.
Yeah, we lost you for a few seconds there.
Really? Okay.
You were at where you said the church will survive, whatever happens. So.
I'm struggling. Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay.
You had got to where saying that the church will survive. The church will still be here, whatever happens here.
Okay, let me be short. I was saying the church will continue because the church has a philosophy. The church has an ideology and uses whoever comes along and suits them. And that's what Christianity is about. So regardless of which time, regardless of which philosophy, the church looks what is in its self-interest to continue. And it's embedded in the minds of the Africans now. And I like what Dr. Marshall has said, that the Africans will always be there rooting for Christianity because they've been taught about Christianity. The Christianity now is in the minds of the Africans. And the Africans don't realize that it is somehow one of those things which is not going to help them to unite because it's rooted in white supremacy. But let's not go there. The Africans have to find the Africanness if they want to unite. And I think that is a message that Nkrumah is saying, that forget about what the church is doing, forget about what the non-religious are doing. Look at yourselves as all Africans and work on that basis. Thank you.
Yeah, Brother Coco, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us. I was just wondering whether what you said is a comment on the paragraphs on the screen. I was just wondering.
Yes, it is, because
okay,
as I said, we said Aristotle defined the boundaries upon which discussions had to take place. It's only within certain narrow boundaries within which dialectics could happen, because it is what he was taught, is what he knows, and he continues in that sense because he is not someone who was meant to be thinking deeper and coming up with a critical thinking. He has to continue that path of saying, this is what I was taught, and this is where it stays.
But Coco,
continue.
is your But it is your forefathers who taught Aristotle.
It is. And don't forget, he stole the material.
So,
Well, he was taught by Plato, don't forget.
yes,
And Plato was taught by Socrates.
but
Yes,
he himself was also he himself also went to Africa, apart from
of
being
course.
taught by Plato. So your forefathers taught him.
But they taught him to think, not to take everything which is given and use it in memory or just information and categorize it, as my brother Dr. Chris has said, and leave it there. They should be using that information to deliver the people, to create new awareness, to development, not just admire information as it is. I think there's one point in which Dr. Nkrumah said, information is being used, or people are being inebriated by information. Aristotle is that type of a thinker. He gets too inebriated into information and doesn't go beyond the obvious.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Brother Chris, just so you know, what you've posted in the chat is contested. Yeah. Just so you know. It's a contested position.
No, you know what Comrade Coco just said? Very powerful, because it seems to be the Western approach to control the narrative, to set boundaries for people's thinking. So I think it's very powerful, because that's what they've been doing.
But are you sure he didn't learn it from the African priests who
I don't think so.
Who are also controlling boundaries?
No, I don't think every information they get.
What did Africans go to do in Spain? What business did they have invading Spain?
What did they do in Spain?
Yeah, what business did they have invading Spain and imposing Islam on Spain?
But it's not only Islam that they imposed.
I'm saying, what business did the Africans have crossing the Iberian Peninsula into Spain to take it over? Anyway, all I'm saying is that what you've put in the chat is contested, because what you are calling paganism is actually what they discovered in the works of Aristotle and so on. The African priests that the West wanted to destroy were those who were labeled pagans. Yeah, they were not really pagans. What we worship as Africans, the Ubuntuism and so on, is not paganism, but that is how they framed it. And then they used their version of Christianity to try and crush indigenous African knowledge, which they defined as paganism. So I'm just saying to you that the way you phrase it is contested. I'm not saying we should have a debate about that now, but I'm just saying just bear that in mind. That's all. Thank you. Let's hear from Brother Dekin Mauli. Brother Dekin Mauli, what are your thoughts on what is on the screen? The king is not ready. So let's go back to Brother Pigeon, who wanted to comment on the second paragraph, but I couldn't because of background noise. Can you do that now, Brother Pigeon?
No, I'll be able to skip out. I might provide my thoughts in text, if that's okay.
Okay, all right. Thank you. So we've heard from everyone except General, who has just joined us. General, I don't know if you can comment on what's on the screen or anything you've heard so far.
Yes, my Elder, give thanks, man, blessed. Yes, family.
Yeah, give thanks, Elder. Are you able to?
No, then sorry, I don't think I'll be able to comment because I just came in. I'm just to pick up. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. I hope you are you are preparing to do another presentation for us on African history.
You
Brother
just
Chris,
have to.
Brother Chris, who's joined
Sorry.
us, is very interested in history. Brother Chris, interested in
Oh.
history, so he needs to know. He needs to know about the Anunnaki long before who were there long before the Constantine and so on came. Anyway,
Yes.
yeah, no,
Yes. You'll just let me know the time.
okay, yeah, well,
Okay.
we'll do that. Okay, so we've
Okay.
heard
Thank
from everyone. Thank you, brother, Raspala.
Brother
So
Kwame,
yes, brother Pigeon.
now just that I have some few space. Is this egalitarianism that Aristotle was trying to restore?
Yeah,
Is it the egalitarianism Aristotle has been proposing at the expense when he says all men are equal
yes,
and embrace
yes,
slave society?
yes. Well,
Which,
that one is the same one. And Nkrumah is still commenting on that same egalitarianism, where somehow it's okay to hold slaves, is to enslave other people. It's okay to enslave people who are not Greeks, and so on and so forth. Yeah, it's the same one. It's the same one. Yeah.
if that is his basis, I'm also seeing the church was trying to adapt the new ideology just to be relevant. You see,
Yes.
today
Well,
in
that's
Kenya,
what
today in Kenya,
Sister Marsha said. If you remember what Sister Marsha said, that she commented on that. And so you have the church embrace Aristotelianism and then going on to enslave other people.
just to be typical example, I will tell you in Kenya, for example, the church voted for the president and said he was a God-sent president. When the president decided to oppress the country, the church came out to call out the president. The president decided to go back to give tithe to the church, and the bishops were in status. And again, they're back to praise the president. So it seems that the church do not have any fundamental basis at all, but rather they have ulterior motive, and what they seek is just for them to exist. But that is not the intention. So they change their moves, everything, and every day just to remain relevant with a hidden intention in a society. And that's what I'm trying to see here.
Which church are you referring to here? Is it which church? There are different churches. Which one? The Catholic Church?
That church of either they call them Christian or whatever, but basically I've seen it in the Christianity angle as a religion, and those churches under that, be they Protestants or anything else they call themselves, they have sometimes been silent.
Yeah, but Brother Peter, remember there are differences. So if you're talking about the Anglican Church, or is it the Catholic Church, or there are. I know that we bring them all under the Protestant movement, but even within them there are differences.
That church, the church is church. Whoever speaks of Jesus Christ is a church. Or there is not a temple or a synagogue or anything. So I'm talking of the church.
The church we are reading in this paragraph is the Roman Catholic Church. It's not. It's this is the church is we are reading the Roman Catholic Church. That's the one we are reading about in this paragraph.
All churches came from Roman Catholic Church, whether they went Protestant, whether they went Seventh or whatever.
Yes, but what we are reading here is the church is the church that was supposedly set up under the authority of Peter.
That's what Sister Dr. Masha was talking about, because the 1492 is the second papal bull. The first papal bull was 1452, that we did what we call the doctrine of discovery, when they were sending them to mission. That's 1452, the one I presented. The 1492 is the second order that was given to the churches, you see. And whether they are in African contemporary context today, whether they are Anglican or whatever, all churches that have picked the same ideology from the Catholic and whatever have seemed to still be pursuing the same thinking in the world just for them to be relevant. And you see, the aspect of them embracing equality within people in a society or equality of men is just for survival. And if you look at it, for example, even in the contemporary context, in most of the churches, if you call it either the Catholic or any Protestant churches, some people who even attend the churches do not even have means. They're poor, but the church is not even concerned of their social welfare. But the pastors and the bishops and whatever they call themselves live in very big houses and they drive very big vehicles. So even in the current setup, the mentality of the church is still the same, hidden. As much as they preach the gospel for all, but really even in all, they live better than the all, and they don't even care that much in terms of the physical, material condition of the congregants. Rather, they're thinking of pursuing the skull spiritual, which is actually their idealist philosophy and the basis. But this is the problem that's coming here, and I'm having the problem the same with Aristotle trying to restore that type of egalitarianism that's already discriminative in nature. So even having that egalitarianism, as much as it could work on the Greek society, if you look at it in the context of today, it still works. For example, even in a society like Kenya, where we say everybody is equal and that everybody has a right to do one or two things, there are some people still appear to be more equal than others. You see, there are people who are actually subjected, especially the ordinary citizen, the workers and the peasants, subjected to harsh conditions, while the majority of the same society who live better life. So it's not true or pure egalitarian society that should be the fundamental egalitarianism in terms of intrinsic worth, but rather the functional level has made the society be more discriminative in their so-called pursuit of egalitarianism.
Thank you very much. So we've not heard from everyone. The time is 7:38. Instead of going on to a new paragraph, let's go around and share our thoughts that have since developed on this issue. I hope when we talk about the church, we are not separating the mosque and the synagogues, because.
But Kwame,
Yes.
I need your explanation a bit on this sentence saying arresting or arrest of the dialectic of thought. What is in this first line in the second paragraph?
Yeah, it means if you set out ahead that these are the definitions of things, this is what quantity means, this is what quality means, this is what space means. If you define them in advance and you make those the boundaries, those definitions your boundaries, then you're arresting thought. Does that make sense? In the sense that you don't want people to think beyond those boundaries. Does that make sense?
Okay, so it's like a close-ended question. It's not an open-ended question. You already direct the thinking to a specific direction.
Yes. So if you look at Aristotle's works, he has 10 definitions of things, like what space means, what quality means, what quantity means, and so on. These are all predefined. So what it means is that if you have your definition of space that doesn't accord with Aristotle, then you are set aside. They say, well, you are not going according to the teachings of Aristotle. Well, if that is the case, then it means that Aristotle is arresting thought. In other words, he's not letting people think the way they want to think. There's no freedom of thought. But does that surprise us, though?
Yeah.
Does that surprise us? Don't they say that we can think freely? Well, one of the things about the West is they tell us that we live in a society where there's freedom of thought. Is that what they say? So why do they ban Russia TV in the West, across the whole of Europe? Why have they banned RTV in the whole of Europe? If we have a right to think freely, and if there's freedom of thought, why are they trying to control the narrative so that we can't hear from the Russians directly? Yeah, why? Across the whole of Europe, I don't know if you know this, but they have banned RTV. Across the whole of Europe, you can't get RTV directly. I mean, many years ago, I could go to a station in London and have a debate on RTV. RTV had a studio where they worked from in London. All that has been banned when the Ukraine war started. But they claim that we have a freedom of thought. So I'm using that as an example, Brother Pigeon. I'm using that as an example to say how they arrest thought. So now they don't want us to think freely. They don't want Europeans, including the British people, because we're not part of Europe, but we are in Europe. We are not part of the EU. But they don't want us to think freely. So that's what that paragraph means. You're arresting thought. You want to control the narrative. I hope that makes sense.
It does. That was my argument from the beginning, that the Western epistemologies are all about controlling the narrative, guiding the thought. So we may be arguing here and seeing fault in Aristotle, who we all agree was a student of Egyptian philosophers. This was his thought. So the philosophy of antiquity taught how to think, how to think and how to put forward your argument and support it. Now, when this Western scholarship was then created, and they chose what they felt was good for them with their limited thinking capacity. Now, this may have just been, it may not be Aristotle who actually wanted to think people to think that way, but out of all the philosophers, they chose to take Aristotle as an authority when he was just putting his thought there for them to be challenged, for people to put counter arguments. That is the problem I have with what has come to be known as Western epistemologies, which it doesn't even exist. All they do, including our knowledge, all they do is to package other people's knowledge and make them theirs, including this Aristotle, including what we did, astrology, mathematics, and all those. All that they know is they have not invented anything. So I have a problem with Western when people say the epistemologies of the West. I said there's nothing like epistemology of the West. Epistemologies are epistemologies. That's what they want to keep the hegemony over everybody else. All that they have done is to package other people, like Comrade Coco had said, is to package. They take what is already known. Even after taking over from Spain, there are records of them destroying everything that they couldn't change and put their names on. But what they did with most of the things, like the books, they would take the cover page and append their names there. Anything that they couldn't change because the content, throughout the content, it made reference to Africans, they would then bend those. So we are here, instead of actually, we are here confined. What I like, what Professor PLO says, say, think without the box. We have been boxed for so long. We think within these boxes that we have been put in. Comrade Coco said that where Nkrumah failed us is that he didn't communicate his thoughts to people, which is what, with the group that I also have, is that, look, let's write these things and make them easily accessible to ordinary people. This thing that we are writing about the history of the church, how it came to be, and this is not exactly what we think it is. We are working on how can this thing be propagated amongst the ordinary members of the church, just for them to have access to it, because now these books, this literature has become a preserve of academy.
Okay,
Like
Chris. Chris, hold your thought for a moment. Let Sister Myra come in, because she thinks we are defending the church. So let's hear what she has to say. Sister Myra, come in, please.
Sorry, I don't think you are defending. I am listening to the brother who is talking about writing the history of the co-optation of the church. Of Christianity, as he puts it. And I'm not going to say that is not an invaluable project. I'm not going to dismiss it. What I will ask the brother is, at the end of the project, when we establish that the church has been co-opted, when we establish that the church was then packaged, as he calls it, to be one of the principal pillars of Black death, the kidnapping and the removal of Black people, dehumanized in the Middle Passage, landed in the Atlantic world, including the Caribbean, and North America, as slaves. When we establish the history of all of that, it still will leave us in the place where we now have to reconcile what we are going to do to move to that, from that point of Black death and Black rupture, to the Africa and the Blackness and the Africanness that we now want. And I feel as though, I am not hearing that in the Brothers Project. I accept that there is nothing, perhaps, that the West did not co-opt, steal, repackage, pass off as their own. I accept that. But then to say that, and to say in the same sentence that the West has no epistemology, in the same sentence, that is hugely erroneous. And that is my problem with the church. And I am talking now not about the church as Catholic or Anglican, because I believe that if we start to tease it out, we run ourselves into more trouble. Because in an island like Barbados, the church is represented by Anglicanism, which was really a king's disdain and separation from the Catholic Church because he could not have full domain over his wives. So when we tease it out, we better not tease it out, because when we tease it out, we run ourselves into further philosophical and intellectual complications about this thing called the church and the usefulness of it. Because then that would bring me into an argument about, even if we could connect the Catholic Church back to Aristotle and Socrates and Plato and the proto, I guess you could say, European thinkers, how would you possibly do that to the Anglican Church? So don't let me go down that rabbit hole. Let's stay on the trajectory where we are thinking and talking about whether these stolen epistemologies became anything in and of themselves. They absolutely do. What they become is the legitimation of Black death and Black destruction on the continent and in the diaspora. And so it is, if the brother wants to justify and defend and ring fence the church and how the church was co-opted, I am okay with that, as long as there is also a place in that conversation or research to then reconcile the years between 1492 and 1830, quote unquote, emancipation. And if you read Rinaldo Walcott and the Long Emancipation, and many other scholars, McKittrick, Sylvia Winter, C.L.R. James, Walter Rodney, we could go on, it didn't even stop in 1838 with emancipation. It continues to today, where the church continues to be the underpinning of a philosophy of white supremacy. So if you want to talk about history, that is fine, but the history does get us to this point of what do we now do with all of it.
Yeah, Sister Marsha, to be fair to Chris, he's sharing his thoughts on what we are reading. And I don't know if he has shared with us his research agenda. I haven't. I've heard snippets of it, but I haven't heard everything. So,
but
so
how
from what
do
I
we
heard,
we are reading without
Yeah.
asking that question? What we are reading encourages an open space for us to ask the very question that I'm asking.
I mean, if you take, for instance, his comment about there being no Western epistemology, I have myself argued that in the past, that all I say, for instance, there is no such thing as Western philosophy. Because all these Western, what they call Western philosophy is basically repackaged African philosophy. I mean, so they've taken African philosophy, from Empedocles, from Anaximenes, from Democritus, and so on, and they've just repackaged it for domination. So,
yes, I think she in a debate she's right to also express her views, so that we can then unpack and clarify where we need to. But like you said,
but Chris, we can't clarify your research agenda today. That's for
I don't want to go there. I don't
another
want to
day.
go there. But I was
I
saying,
think, Chris, what is important is you're sharing your thoughts on what we've read, and we hearing from Sister Marsha on the thoughts of what she read for us and what we think. And we do not in this class assume that we'll all agree on the shared thoughts. Everyone is free to share their thoughts as they think, and everyone is free to disagree or agree with thoughts as are shared. And it's a safe space. And if Sister Marsha disagrees with you, so be it. And if you disagree with Sister Marsha, so be it. As long as we have done, and I thank you all, we do it respectfully, listen to one another, and that's all we ask for. And so far we've done that so well. So the time is 6 minutes to 8, and we come to the end of the discussion. I hope. Well, first, I thank you too for joining us a day after Christmas. Very unusual, but no, thank you. And we'll be here again on next year, on the 2nd of December, of January, sorry, and continue this nice discussion. I hope Sister Myra, Dr. Myri, I hope you'll join us and share your deep insights with us. So thank you all for joining us. Brother Pigeon will make any final announcements, and then if there are any questions, we can answer them, and then bring the meeting to a close in the next 6 minutes.
I've been asking to send the the book by Nkrumah. I've been asking. I sent my email several times. I've not received it. I would love.
Yeah, Sister Marsha, just so you know, I have emailed you just to be in touch with you. Just I don't know if you can check your email. You will see I've emailed you, so I can send you the book once we leave the class.
How do I get it?
And on the other hand, Brother Pigeon also shares them. If you put your Brother Pigeon, I believe you have picked Sister Marsha's email. Is that correct?
I have shared the book already in the chat, but I have the contact of both Sister Myra, Dr. Marsha, and Brother Chris. But I have shared the book in the chat.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. General, how do we connect from here? Please, I would like to connect with you.
Yes. Again, Brother Pigeon is our lead administrator. He's also like our general secretary, so he oversees us all, including myself. So he will tell you what to do. But can I hand over to Brother Pigeon now to make any announcements and bring the meeting to a close? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Brother Kwame. Thank you, Dr. Marsha and Brother Chris. I know we've been engaging in other platforms as well. Actually, what we do is, this is the writing by Kwame Nkrumah in his book, actually, Consciousness, which is the Pan-African philosophy to decolonize Africa. The key intention is decolonization of Africa. And decolonization of Africa, Nkrumah, as you have seen, he actually goes straight to expose or report the matter as it is. So when Nkrumah looks at Aristotle and look at Plato, he wants us to understand it as it is, from where it is. Then he goes ahead, after analyzing this position, to provide for us his thinking. Just the same way we always read here, and when we share our thinking. So Nkrumah That is the style this book has been written all along. If you go across from the first chapter, Nkrumah stated how the situation is. It goes deep for you to understand and analyze the weaknesses of both positions and philosophies. And then he drives and walks with you towards his conclusion, which then you can see is actually is more of deduced from all the situations that he has put forth to us. So as we read Aristotle and Plato, Nkrumah want us to read it with clear understanding and looking at it critically, so that we can then develop our thinking and our consciousness, so that we can also be able to actually decolonize our thinking from such thoughts and action. So this is what we do every Thursday, and thank you for those of you joining us. I'll text brother Coco will give you my contact, brother Chris, but I think I have your contact. I'll add you to a broadcast list, and Dr. Masha also will do that to our broadcast list. We always share or send out our class reminders, and the text that is to be read, we attach it in advance so that you can be able to have time to read it at your personal capacity or your personal level. Now, this will continue, as Brother Kwame said, in the next week, probably now, that will be now January 2025. And all these recordings are available on our YouTube channel. So just today in the morning, I uploaded all the recording for last week. So all our classes that we've done before, if there's anything you might be interested in, time when you are free a bit, instead of watching some other movies, sometimes you can just go back and listen to us doing this conversation. It will be very helpful to you. We have 192 video uploads, 192 video uploads on our YouTube channel, and we've never failed in any week to upload the videos or have a session. This is for purpose of references for people who cannot attend our actual classes. We are looking forward to Saturday classes, which is actually, Saturday is now open for further conversation. Like the discussion we've been having here is open for further conversation and further elaboration on Saturday, where we hold our unification session. So we have a second class Saturday from 6 p.m. GMT currently, where we hold and have a conversation again on issues surrounding unification of Africa. That goes also with the liberation and development of Africa in all fronts, politically, economically. We've now gone again historically, and going even extra to understand our civilization a bit from the presentation that Brother Raspala gave to us. So that is in this Saturday. Probably we might be able to be joined by one of the young comrades in Kenya who has been an activist in the state, and to explain the struggles for the liberation of Africa on the ground and a physical ground, with abductions and everything else going on in Africa, and how is the real struggle going on, the real action on the ground. But I would also like to inform you that we have our Pan-African Library, where we have done a collection so far in the last 2.5 weeks of almost 500 books in issues of classical books that Brother Kwame is talking about, spirituality, the voodoo, the African spirituality is there, the issue of science, mathematics, calculus is there, the issue of politics, governance of Africa is there, these theories, philosophies, and writings of Nkrumah and all other people, including Marcus Garvey, are now available on our WhatsApp channel for our library. We also have a research group for those who might be interested to concentrate on researching some key topics that we look forward to cover on 2025. Feel also free to join us and contribute to this. So basically, we are not only in this space. We have open other spaces as well to see how we can contribute to the struggle for liberation, unification, and development of Africa. We also have a Tuesday class on education, where I actually do teach Kiswahili for those Pan-African interested to learn Kiswahili as a unifying language, as part of the action we are taking as a class as well, to put some initiative towards supporting and unifying Africa with one common language. So these are so many or few of the things we do together, and we thank you every day and every time for your attendance and your patience, and especially on these holidays for taking time to be with us. Happy Kwanzaa to all of you, and may we meet again this Saturday or next week. Have a blessed evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much.